The dust had a way of settling into the bones out here, like a memory the land refused to forget. It rose from the street with every boot step, clung to the hems of coats, and drifted through the open doors of the trading post where men counted coins and measured lives. In that place, a woman stood with her wrists bound in iron, her chin lifted, as if the sun itself answered to her. When the auctioneer's voice cracked and fell silent, she spoke first, clear and steady. "You bought my flesh, stranger," the Comanche woman stated, "but I submit to no gold," the crowd murmured. Somewhere in that noise, a cowboy paused, his hand still resting on the counter where his money lay. The town was called Red Mesa, though there was little red left in it. Wind had scraped the color away, leaving only wood-bleached pale and faces worn thinner than promises. Wagons lined the square. Rifles leaned against walls. Men watched with the hard patience of those who had seen too much and learned too little. The woman's eyes moved over them without fear, dark as storm water, holding a fire that did not ask permission to burn. She wore the marks of travel and trial, but her back was straight. Chains could not bend it. They called her Iron Willow, a name earned long before the day she was taken. She had crossed rivers in flood and plains under moonless skies. She had buried kin with her own hands and sung them into the earth. The world had tried to break her many times, and each time it failed, it came back meaner. When the traders captured her, they thought the iron on her wrists would finish the work. They were wrong. The cowboy had come to Red Mesa with dust on his hat and blood on his past. Folks knew him as Colden Pike, a man shaped by miles and mistakes. His eyes were the color of weathered steel, his beard trimmed close, his coat patched where bullets had passed too near. He had worked cattle, ridden guard, buried friends, and learned when to speak and when to keep his mouth shut. He had not come to buy a soul. He had come to sell a string of horses and be gone before the night. Cooled, but the world has a way of turning a man where it wants him. Colden watched the iron bite into Iron Willow's wrists and felt a tightening in his chest he did not welcome. He told himself it was none of his business. He told himself the price paid had been fair in a crooked way. He told himself many things that did not ring true. When the auctioneer nodded to him and slid the receipt across the counter, Colden took it with a hand that felt heavier than before. "You think paper owns me?" Iron Willow said. Her voice low now, meant for him alone. "Gold is a story men tell to sleep at night." Colden met her gaze. He had faced charging bulls and ambush fire, but this was different. There was no plea in her eyes, no bargain offered. Only a line drawn in dust. He could step back or step forward. Either way, the land would remember. The trader unlocked the chain from the post and handed the end to Colden. The metal scraped like a warning. Around them, Red Mesa leaned in. Bets were made in whispers. Some men smiled, others frowned. No one interfered. That was the rule of places like this. Survival wore many masks, and kindness was the rarest. Colden did not pull. He did not speak. He stood there, feeling the weight of choice settle on his shoulders. He thought of the road north, the open grass, the river bends where cottonwoods grew. He thought of the night his brother fell, of a promise made and broken, of a debt that never left him. He thought of what kind of man he would be when the dust finally claimed him. Iron Willow took a step forward on her own. The chain tightened between them. She did not flinch. "I will walk," she said, "but I will not kneel." The words cut clean. Colden nodded once. It was not agreement. It was recognition. They moved through the square together, not master and captive, but two figures bound by a moment neither had planned. The sun beat down. Flies buzzed. Somewhere a child laughed, unaware of the line being crossed, as they passed the saloon. A figure in the doorway watched them with narrowed eyes. Blackened Spur was his name, a man who made his living in the cracks of law and hunger. He had lost money on the bid and did not forget losses. His hand rested near his belt, and his smile was thin. Trouble followed men like him the way shadows follow noon. Outside town, the land opened wide. Sage brushed their boots. The chain clinked with each step. Colden led them toward his horse, a gray with a scarred flank and patient eyes. He stopped and turned to Iron Willow. The wind carried the smell of rain far off, a promise not yet kept. I won't pretend I know your road, Colden said. His voice was rough, unused to careful words. But I won't drag you down mine. Right. Iron Willow studied him, weighing truth the way she weighed men. Then cut the iron, she said. Let the land see what you choose. Colden reached for his knife. His fingers hovered. Cutting the chain would break the law of Red Mesa, such as it was. It would draw eyes and guns. It would make enemies he did not need. Leaving it whole would make him something he could not be. The wind pressed close, as if listening. A shout rose from behind them. Hooves thundered. Blackened Spur and his riders were coming hard, dust boiling under their horses. The town watched from a distance, already stepping back from the edge of blame. Colden's knife flashed in the sun. Iron Willow lifted her chin, unafraid. The chain sang as steel met steel. Somewhere between the cut and the charge, a line was crossed that could not be stepped back over. The iron fell away, striking the ground with a sound that echoed longer than it should have. The riders closed in. Guns came up. Colden turned toward the threat, placing himself where the first shot would find him. Iron Willow moved beside him, free hands ready, eyes alive with a promise older than gold. The land held its breath. What followed would bind them tighter than any chain, or tear them apart before the dust could settle. The first shot did not come. The riders reined in hard, horses snorting, hooves tearing the ground where the chain had fallen. Dust wrapped the moment in a choking veil, and in that haze, eyes measured distance and consequence. Blackened Spur lifted a hand, not to calm his men, but to hold the instant like a coin balanced on its edge. He wanted fear to settle first. He wanted to see what kind of man Colden Pike would be when pressed. Colden stood still, shoulders squared, the gray horse shifting behind him. His hand rested near his holster, not touching, not tempting. He knew the law of Red Mesa followed money and momentum. Today it leaned toward Blackened Spur. Tomorrow it might lean another way. The land had taught him that patience could be sharper than steel. Iron. Willow felt the wind slide along her wrists where iron had been. The skin burned with memory, but her fingers flexed, alive again. She glanced at Colden, then back to the riders. Her people had faced circles like this before, men with guns and loud breath, men who mistook numbers for power. She did not move forward. She did not step back. She waited, letting the ground remember her weight. Blackened Spur spoke, his voice carrying easy across the space. That chain was paid for. Smile showed teeth worn down by bad choices. Paper says she's yours, Pike. Paper says, I get what I paid when I take her off your hands. Colden answered without raising his voice. Paper burns, he nodded, toward the iron in the dirt. So does pride. A murmur passed through the riders. One of them, a lean man with a scar like a lightning strike across his cheek, spat and shifted his rifle. They were used to men folding, 2 deals cut fast and cheap. Colden was not folding. That unsettled them. Iron Willow spoke again, her words calm as creek water. You chase shadows. I belong to the wind and the trail. You cannot ride what you cannot name. Blackened Spur laughed, sharp and quick. Hear that, boys? Wind talking back. His eyes narrowed. You cut iron in my town? That makes you a problem. Behind the riders, a figure approached at a careful distance, boots steady, coat clean. He was tall, broad across the chest, with hair the color of old straw and eyes that took everything in. They called him Judge Harrow, though no court had given him the title. He carried authority the way some men carried scars. When he stopped, the air shifted. Enough, Judge Harrow said. His voice was not loud, but it held. No blood on this ground today. Blackened Spur turned his horse, annoyance flashing. You always show up when the pot's boiling. I show up when fools forget what fire does, Judge Harrow replied. He looked at the broken chain, then at Colden. You cut iron. You know the cost. Colden met his gaze. I know the weight. Judge Harrow nodded once, as if that settled nothing and everything at once. Then ride, he said. All of you. This land will not be your stage today. The riders hesitated. Blackened Spur measured Judge Harrow, then Colden, then Iron Willow. He smiled again, slowed this time. Another day, he said. Debts keep. They turned, dust rising as they left, the sound of hooves fading toward Red Mesa. The town exhaled, already pretending it had seen nothing. Judge Harrow watched them go, then faced Colden. You just made a long road longer, he said. Colden shrugged. Roads were never short. Judge Harrow's eyes shifted to Iron Willow. You are far from your people, she nodded. Distance is a teacher. Judge Harrow considered that, then stepped back. Storm's coming, he said, glancing at the horizon. Choose where you stand when it breaks. He left them there with the wind and the promise of rain. Colden turned to his horse, checking the cinch, keeping his movement steady. Iron Willow moved closer, not touching, her presence a quiet force. They rode north as the sky darkened, the gray horse carrying Colden, Iron Willow walking beside at first, then taking the spare mount when the ground softened. The land opened into rolling grass, the smell of rain thickening. Colden did not ask questions. He had learned that stories came when they were ready. By nightfall, they reached a stand of cottonwoods by a narrow creek. Colden built a small fire, more for light than warmth. Iron Willow knelt, cupping water, letting it run over her wrists. The marks would fade. The memory would not. You could have left, she said, not accusing, just stating. Colden poked the fire. Could have done a lot of things. She watched him for a long moment. Why didn't you? He thought of his brother again, of a rope frayed by too much load, of a choice made late. Because I've seen what happens when men pretend they didn't have a choice. She nodded, accepting that answer for now. The fire crackled. Somewhere, thunder rolled, far but moving, as the rain began, light and steady. Iron Willow spoke of her people without names, of trails taken and lost, of a council fire broken by greed. She spoke of a child taken, not by traitors, but by sickness, and how grief could hollow a camp faster than hunger. Colden listened, adding the sounds to his own long list of things the land carried. When the rain eased, spoke of cattle drives and empty towns, of nights spent counting stars to stay awake. He spoke of a promise to keep a man alive that he could not keep. Iron Willow listened, eyes reflecting firelight, understanding more than words aloud. They slept in turns. Colden dreamed of iron falling and rising again. Iron Willow dreamed of horses running toward a ridge she could not reach. Morning came gray and cool. They broke camp quickly. The road north narrowed into a trail cutting through low hills. Colden knew these parts. There was a place ahead where the ground dropped into a cut, easy to hide, hard to escape. He felt the prickle between his shoulders that had saved him before. They did not speak when the ambush came. A shot cracked the air, striking dirt near Colden's boot. He pulled Iron Willow down behind a rock as bullets snapped past, tearing grass and stone. Voices shouted. Blackened Spur's laughter carried, pleased and hungry. Colden returned fire, measured buying time. Iron Willow moved with him, reading the land, pointing to a narrow run where water had carved a path. There, she said. If we reach the bend. They ran when the shots paused, slipping into the cut, water splashing cold around their ankles. The path twisted, hiding them, then opening suddenly onto a wider wash. Horses waited there, not theirs. Blackened Spur had planned well. Another voice cut through the noise, firm and sharp. Huldah woman stepped forward from behind a boulder, rifled steady, hair braided tight. Her coat bore the mark of a marshal. They called her Ash Crow, and she did not bluff. Blackened Spur cursed. This ain't your hunt. Ash Crow did not lower her rifle. It is when you spill trouble across my ground. The standoff stretched, rain beginning again, thin and cold. Colden felt the press of time, the narrowing of options. Iron Willow stood beside him, calm, eyes on Ash Crow. There was recognition there, shared understanding of lines drawn and kept. Ash Crow glanced at Iron Willow, then back at Colden. You cut iron, she said. That takes nerve. It took necessity, Colden replied. Ash Crow's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Those are close cousins. Blackened spur shifted, hand-inching. The riders tensed. The wash held the moment like a breath that might never release. Somewhere beyond the hills, thunder answered thunder. No one fired. Not yet. The rain thickened, blurring edges, softening sound. Ash Crow held her ground. Blackened spur weighed risk against reward. Colden felt the pull of the trail and the pass tightening together. Iron Willow lifted her chin, voice carrying over the rain. This road does not end here, she said. It bends. The words settled. Choices waited on the other side of them, heavy and unresolved. The wash filled slowly with water, rising inch by inch, as if the land itself was counting down to a decision none of them were ready to make. The water crept higher around their boots, cold and insistent, as if the land itself meant to force a choice. Ash Crow held her rifle steady, rain sliding off the barrel. Blackened Spur watched the rising wash with a calculating eye, already measuring how much risk he could afford. Colden Pike felt the pull of two futures tightening like reins drawn too hard. Iron Willow stood beside him, still as a rooted tree, her gaze fixed not on the guns but on the bend of the land beyond them. Ash Crow broke the silence first. This ground floods fast, she said. Men who linger here learn that the hard way. Blackened Spur sneered. You always preaching, Crow. Law, don't ride these washes. Coin does. Coin floats, Ash Crow replied. Bodies don't. Her words landed heavy. One of Spur's riders glanced back toward higher ground, doubt flickering. Spur caught it and frowned. Control mattered to him. Losing it even for a breath felt like blood in the water. Colden shifted his stance, easing the tension in his shoulders without lowering his guard. He did not trust truces built on weather, but he respected warnings earned. We can all walk out, he said. No shots. No graves. Spur laughed, but it sounded thin. You think this ends because rain falls? Iron Willow spoke quietly, her voice carrying through the wash. It ends when hunger is fed or starves itself. Ash Crow looked at her, studying the set of her shoulders, the calm in her eyes. You speak like someone who has crossed many lines. Iron Willow met her gaze. Lines move. People stay. Ash Crow nodded once, something like respect passing between them. She lowered her rifle a fraction, not enough to invite trouble, enough to signal a path. Ride out, she said to Colden. Take the cut north. I'll hold them here. Spur bristled. You don't get to decide. I do today, Ash Crow said. Badge or not, I stand where I stand. The rain came harder, drumming the wash, the water rising to their calves. Spur cursed again, louder now, and wheeled his horse. Fall back, he snapped to his men. We'll hunt them dry. They pulled away grudgingly, hooves splashing, anger trailing behind them like smoke. Ash Crow waited until they were gone, then turned to Colden and Iron Willow. This buys you hours, she said. Not days. Colden inclined his head. Ours can change things. Ash Crow's eyes softened, just a touch. Careful what you believe. They moved quickly once the path cleared, following the cut north until the ground lifted and the water thinned. The rain eased into a steady whisper. Colden found a narrow ridge trail that climbed toward higher country, a place where the land folded in on itself and hid secrets well. As they rode, Iron Willow spoke of a place called Stone Breach, a crossing known to her people where paths split and met again. Colden knew it too, though by another name. That overlap felt like a sign neither of them fully trusted. By afternoon, the sky cleared enough to show blue breaking through. They reached a derelict way station, timbers sagging, roof half gone. Colden checked the perimeter while Iron Willow searched the interior. Old tracks cut the mud, fresh enough to matter. Someone had been here recently. A figure emerged from behind the station, hands raised. He was young, eyes sharp, coat too clean for a drifter. Don't shoot, he said quickly. I'm just passing through. Colden kept his rifle leveled. Passing through leaves tracks, the young man swallowed. Name's Flint Cade, he said. I run messages. I don't pick sides. Iron Willow studied him, reading more than his words. "Messages way more than you think," she said. Flint nodded, nervous. "I carry news, not bullets." Colden lowered his rifle a notch. "Who sent you?" Flint hesitated, then spoke. "Judge Harrow." That name shifted the air again. Colden exchanged a glance with Iron Willow. "What does he want?" "Says the land's stirring," Flint said. "Says Red Mesa ain't the only place sharpening knives. Says there's talk of a bounty moving quiet, paid in more than gold." Iron Willow's jaw tightened. "For me?" Flint nodded. "For you? Alive." Colden felt the road narrow further. "Who's paying?" Flint shook his head. Names weren't given, just routes and rewards. They let Flint go with a warning and a meal, sending him south away from trouble. As he disappeared, Iron Willow turned to Colden. "They will not stop." Colden stared at the hills. "Then we keep moving." They traveled at dusk, avoiding open ground, using draws and ridges. Along the way, they encountered signs of other lives brushed by the same storm. A burned homestead with a child's shoe half buried in ash. A cattle herd scattered, brands cut. The conflict was spreading, threads pulling tight across the territory at a narrow pass. They met a small band camped by a spring. Their leader, a broad woman with a scarred jaw and eyes like flint, stepped forward. "Name's Redthorn," she said. "You bring trouble," Colden nodded. "Trouble finds its own way." Redthorn glanced at Iron Willow and stiffened. Recognition sparked. "You are Iron Willow." Iron Willow inclined her head. "And you are far from the southern plains." Redthorn's mouth curved into a grim smile. "So are you." They shared news in low voices. Redthorn spoke of patrols tightening, of men hired to watch crossings, of whispers that a council of traitors meant to make an example. Iron Willow listened, filing each detail away. Colden learned how wide the net had grown. When night fell, they took turns keeping watch. Colden listened to the land, 2 distant hooves and closer owls. Iron Willow watched the stars, tracing paths older than maps. She spoke then, softly, of a promise made to a dying elder, to carry truth back to a place where stories were breaking. Colden understood the weight of that kind of vow. At dawn, Redthorn parted ways, heading east to warn others. Colden and Iron Willow turned north again, toward Stone Breach. The pass narrowed, rock walls closing in. It was a good place for trade and a better place for traps. They were not alone. From above, a stone shifted, clattering down. A voice echoed, calm and cold. "You walk into deep water?" A man stepped into view on the ridge. Long coat, rifle slung easy. His name was Grave Hollow, a hunter who tracked debts like prey. Behind him, more figures moved, patient and silent. Colden felt the old calm settle, the kind that came before storms broke. Iron Willow stood tall, eyes fixed on Grave Hollow. "You chased the wrong thing," she said. Grave Hollow smiled without warmth. "I chase what's paid for." The pass tightened around them, choices thinning. Below, the trail dropped into shadow. Above, rifles waited. Somewhere behind, blackened Spur would be riding hard, anger fueling his pace. The land pressed in, watching. Colden shifted his weight, readying for movement that might by seconds. Iron Willow closed her eyes for a breath, feeling the stone, the wind, the memory of iron turned to dust. The conflict had grown teeth and many mouths, and none of them were done biting. The sun crested the ridge, lighting the pass in sharp lines. Grave Hollow raised a hand, not to fire, but to pause, savoring the moment. The next choice would echo far beyond this narrow cut, and every path forward carried a cost that had yet to be paid. Stone Breach. Narrowed, until the sky became a blade of blue overhead. Wind slid through the pass with a low whistle, carrying grit and warning. Grave Hollow remained above them, his silhouette sharp against the light, men spaced along the ridge like markers on a map. None rushed. Hunters like him believed patience won more than speed. Colden Pike felt the weight of that belief pressing down. Iron Willow stepped forward one pace, boots firm on stone. "You stand on a crossing," she said. Crossings are meant to pass through, not be owned. Grave Hollow tilted his head. Everything can be owned with the right price. Colden shifted slightly, angling his body to shield Iron Willow without making a show of it. His eyes tracked the ridge, counting shadows, noting where rock could give way. He had been cornered before. Corners could be broken if you found the seam. A distant sound rolled through the pass. Not thunder this time, but hooves, many of them. Grave Hollow's gaze flicked south, then back, irritation tightening his mouth. Seems we're not the only ones following. Iron Willow closed her eyes for a brief moment, listening. She heard the land speak in echoes and rhythm. They ride angry, she said. Anger makes noise. From behind, the sound grew clearer. Blackened Spur and his riders were coming fast, driven by loss and promise both. Between ridge and rear, Colden and Iron Willow stood in a tightening vice. Grave Hollow smiled, seeing advantage multiply. Looks like fate brought friends. Colden laughed once, dry. Fate's never been friendly. He moved then, sudden and precise, firing a shot not at men, but at stone. The crack split the air as rock shattered, sending fragments cascading down the slope. Dust billowed, obscuring sight. Iron Willow was already moving, pulling Colden toward a narrow cleft she had marked with her eyes. They slipped into it as bullets snapped through the haze. The cleft dropped steep and twisted, barely wide enough for shoulders. Colden slid, catching himself, boots scraping. Iron Willow moved ahead, sure-footed, guiding them through turns where the rock smoothed from countless seasons. Above, shouts echoed. Below, the pass opened toward a hidden basin. They burst into it breathless. The basin was ringed with juniper and low pines, a bowl carved by old water. Smoke rose from a small camp near the center. Figures turned, startled. Ash Crow stepped forward, hand raised. Easy, she called. You made it. Relief flashed across Colden's face, brief and guarded. You always pick tight spots. Ash Crow's eyes flicked to the rim of the basin. So do the rest of them. Judge Harrow emerged from the trees, coat darkened by travel, expression grave. Stonebreach wakes old debts, he said. Word travels faster than riders. Iron Willow looked at him steadily. Then speak clearly. Judge Harrow nodded. There's a council forming, he said. Traders, ranchers, men with maps and money. They want a show of order. You are their example. Ashcrow spat into the dirt. Order built on chains. Basin filled quickly as others arrived. Red Thorn came in from the east with her band, faces hard, weapons low but ready. From the north, riders bearing different marks gathered, wary alliances forming by necessity. The land drew lines that men had tried to erase. Blackened Spur's riders appeared along the rim, silhouettes sharp. Grave Hollow's men spread opposite them. The air hummed with held breath. Colden felt the basin tighten, every sound amplified. He looked at Iron Willow, seeing calm settle into her like armor. She stepped to the center, lifting her voice. You circle this place thinking it will give you what you want, she said. But crossings do not belong to one story. They belong to all who honor them. Blackened Spur laughed from above. Pretty words don't change contracts. Judge Harrow raised his voice. Contracts made under iron break under light? Grave Hollow shifted, uneasy at the gathering he had not planned. You let this turn into a crowd? He called to Colden. Crowds get messy. Colden looked up. So do lies. The sun climbed, lighting faces, revealing doubt and hunger alike. Whispers passed through the gathered groups. Some had come for gold, others for justice, many for survival. The council's promise of reward had pulled them together, but now the cost was becoming clear. Ash Crow moved to Iron Willow's side. If this breaks, it breaks hard. Iron Willow nodded. Hard ground can still grow. A rider broke from the northern edge, an older man with silver threaded through his beard. His name was Flint Ridge, known for keeping peace along river routes. He raised both hands. Listen, he called. This ends one of two ways. Blood feeds the ground, or truth does. Choose. Silence followed, heavy and fragile. Blackened Spur's smile faltered. He glanced at his men, seeing hesitation. Grave Hollow scanned the crowd, calculating diminishing returns. Judge Harrow watched it all, hands clasped, waiting. Colden felt the weight of eyes on him. He was not the center of this, but he had become a pivot. He stepped forward beside Iron Willow. "I bought a lie," he said. "I cut it loose. I won't help build another." Iron Willow placed her hand over her heart. "I will walk my own road," she said. "But I will not walk it alone if others stand true." And the words stirred something. Redthorn lifted her chin. "No more chains," she said. Others murmured agreement. The basin shifted, alliances realigning like stones underwater. A sharp crack echoed as a shot rang out from the rim, striking rock near Iron Willow's feet. Dust burst. Blackened Spur shouted, trying to reclaim the moment. "Enough talk," Ashcrow fired back. "Not to kill, but to warn." Chaos threatened to spill. Colden grabbed Iron Willow's arm, pulling her behind cover as rocks chipped and men shouted. Judge Harrow's voice boomed over the noise. "Hold," he roared. "By the authority you pretend not to recognize." Some shots ceased. Others did not. The basin teetered. Colden felt time stretch thin, every heartbeat loud. He saw a path opening near the trees, a route that could funnel people out if the firing stopped. He locked eyes with Ashcrow, nodding toward it. She understood barking orders, moving bodies with sharp commands. Redthorn's band shifted, creating space. Flint Ridge moved among the hesitant, urging restraint. The council's promise cracked further. Grave Hollow cursed, seeing control slip. He raised his rifle, aiming toward the basin's heart. Colden moved without thinking, stepping into the open, gun raised. Their eyes met across distance and dust. Iron Willow stepped beside Colden, unafraid. "This ends soon," she said softly. "One way or another." The wind picked up, whipping dust into spirals. The sound of hooves thundered again, but this time not with anger. More riders arrived bearing no marks, drawn by rumor and smoke. Witnesses to whatever would be decided here. Blackened Spur shouted orders, his voice strained. Men looked to him, then to the growing crowd, then to the ground. The basin held too many eyes now. Too much truth. Colden felt hope flicker, dangerous and bright. Not resolution, not yet, but the shape of it forming beyond the ridge. He tightened his grip, steadying his breath. Iron Willow's presence anchored him, her strength quiet and sure. Above them, clouds moved, breaking to let sunlight flood the basin. For a moment, everything was clear. Faces, lines, choices laid bare. The next sound would tip it all. Grave Hollow's finger tightened. Blackened Spur's shout rose. Ashcrow braced. Judge Harrow stepped forward, ready to speak again. Iron Willow lifted her chin, eyes on the open path. The crossing waited, holding its breath. As the story leaned into its sharpest edge just before the fall toward whatever ending the land would allow, the shot never came. Instead, the wind carried a different sound, a long breath moving through the basin, as if the land itself had decided enough was enough. Grave Hollow lowered his rifle first, not out of mercy, but calculation. Too many eyes. Too many witnesses. The moment had turned against clean violence. And men like him survived by reading such turns early. Blackened Spur shouted again, but his voice cracked this time. A few of his riders shifted back, horses uneasy, sensing the change before their riders did. Anger still burned in Spur's eyes, yet doubt crept in around the edges. He had pushed too hard, too far. And now the ground beneath him no longer felt solid. Judge Harrow stepped forward into the open, rain-washed coat catching the light. "This ends here," he said, slow and clear. "No more chains sold in Red Mesa. No more bounties paid for breathing people. Anyone who thinks otherwise will answer to every crossing from here to the river bend." Ashcrow moved beside him, rifle lowered but ready. "And to me," she added, "I will remember every face that chooses wrong today." The basin held still. Redthorn folded her arms, her people steady behind her. Flint Ridge nodded once, a signal passing quietly among the gathered riders. What had begun as a hunt had become a reckoning, and not all debts could survive daylight. Black and Spur looked around and saw the truth too late. He was outnumbered, not in guns, but in resolve. He spat into the dirt. "You think this makes you clean?" he snarled. "The land don't forget." Iron Willow stepped forward then, her voice calm and strong. "The land remembers balance," she said. "It remembers when harm is answered with care." She reached down and picked up a length of broken iron chain that lay near the center of the basin, left from an old snare. She held it up for all to see. "This is what you tried to trade," she said. "Cold metal for a living spirit. That trade fails every time." Slowly, deliberately, she dropped the chain into the fire pit at the center of the camp. Heat took it, metal darkening, warping. The simple act carried more weight than any gunshot. Murmurs spread, then quiet agreement. Grave Hollow backed away, signaling his men to do the same. "This hunt's over," he muttered. "Gold's not worth this." One by one, riders turned their horses. Black and Spur lingered longest, hatred burning, but even he knew when the trail ended. He wheeled hard and rode out, his men following. The sound of their hooves fading into something smaller than it had been. When they were gone, the basin seemed to widen, air rushing back in. Colden Pike let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. He looked at Iron Willow, seeing relief soften her strength without weakening it. Ash Crow clapped Colden on the shoulder. "You stood where it mattered." "So did you," he replied. Judge Harrow approached Iron Willow with measured respect. "You are free," he said. "Not just from iron, but from claim. I will see it written, spoken, and enforced." Iron Willow met his gaze. "Freedom kept quiet fades," she said. "Freedom shared lasts." Judge Harrow nodded. "Then let it be known." They stayed in the basin until the sun dipped low, sharing food, water, and words. Stories were exchanged, not of conquest, but of survival. Red Thorn spoke of roots reopening. Flint Ridge promised safe passage along the river. Ash Crow pledged patrols that protected instead of preyed. That night, the fire burned steady. Colden sat across from Iron Willow, the weight between them lighter now, but not gone. "Where will you go?" he asked. She looked toward the north, then west, then finally at him. "First, I will return what was taken," she said. "Stories, memory. Then I will walk where the road feels honest." He nodded. "I have horses to sell and fences to mend. But roads have a way of crossing again." She smiled, small but real. "Crossings do that." At dawn, the basin emptied in peace. People rode out carrying something new with them, a sense that the land could still be met halfway. Colden and Iron Willow traveled together for a time, through grasslands bright with morning and along creeks swollen from rain. They spoke of simple things, of weather and tracks, letting silence work where words were not needed. Near the river bend, they stopped. The water moved steady and clear, carrying reflections of sky and earth alike. Iron Willow dismounted and knelt, touching the surface. "This is where I turn," she said. Colden dismounted as well. "I'll ride with you as far as the cottonwoods," he offered. She shook her head gently. "This part I walk alone," he understood. He reached into his saddlebag and pulled out the folded receipt from Red Mesa, the paper that had started it all. Without ceremony, he tore it in half, then again, and dropped the pieces into the river. They floated briefly, then vanished. Iron Willow watched, eyes warm. "You chose well," she said. "So did you," he replied. They stood there a moment longer, the river speaking for them. Then she turned, walking west along the bank, her steps sure and unbound. Colden mounted and rode east, carrying less weight than he had in years. Weeks later, Red Mesa changed. Chains disappeared from posts. The trading post closed, replaced by a supply house that sold tools, not people. Ash Crow's patrols kept the peace with a firm hand and a fair eye. Judge Harrow's words spread, crossing two towns that listened because they wanted to. Colden returned to his work, finding purpose in honest labor. He thought of Iron Willow often, not with longing, but respect. Some nights when the wind moved just right, He felt the land breathe easier. Far to the west, Iron Willow reached her people. She shared what she had seen, what had been risked, what had been reclaimed. Stories took root again. Children listened. Elders nodded. The chain that had been meant to bind became a lesson told by foliage, not chasing anything, simply following a road that felt open. At a crossing lined with cottonwoods, he saw a familiar figure waiting. Iron Willow stood there, the river at her back, her smile easy and free. "You found your way," she said. "So did you," he answered. They crossed together, not owned by gold, not bound by iron, but guided by choice and the quiet promise of a land that remembered those who walked it true.